I found out my wife was cheating on me the night before our anniversary dinner, and I still took her to the restaurant. It was the same place we'd gone to every year, a little Italian spot on the edge of town, the kind of place with yellowed string lights and chipped wine glasses they called vintage. I'd booked it weeks in advance. She wore a black dress I hadn't seen before. I told her she looked beautiful. She smiled like she always did when she was lying, like she was already somewhere else in her head. She didn't know I knew. Not yet. I found the messages by accident. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for a receipt in our shared email. That's when I saw the thread labeled Utilities and clicked it without thinking. It wasn't about utilities. It was about him, the man she was seeing, a man who signed off his messages with M, a man who said things like, "I wish you didn't have to pretend with him tonight." And she'd replied, "I won't pretend for much longer. I promise." I didn't say anything. Not that night. Not even as she reached across the table and touched my hand like nothing was wrong. The only thing I asked her was, "Does my mother know we're coming by this weekend?" She froze, just for a second. Most people wouldn't have caught it. But I did. Because I knew my wife. And I knew my mother. And I'd started to see how tightly the two had become entangled. She said, "I think she's out of town, isn't she?" I nodded. Right. That's what she told me. I wasn't sure why I said it. I think I wanted to see her twitch again. The thing is, if you'd asked me 2 months ago, I would have told you I was married to the kind of woman who didn't cheat. Thoughtful, quiet, a little aloof in public, but affectionate in private. Her name was Elise. She wore linen in the summer and always packed tissues in her bag for strangers who cried. She looked like the kind of woman you marry and build a life with. I used to believe I was lucky to have her. But I started noticing small things. She changed her shampoo. She started keeping her phone face down. She came home flushed in a way I hadn't made her feel in months. Once, I kissed her neck and she stiffened. Not because she didn't want it, but because it was too familiar. Like I was stepping into someone else's rhythm. And then there were the visits to my mother. More and more lately. Sometimes I'd come home from work and Elise would be sitting on the porch, sipping tea out of one of my mother's cups. She said they were just talking. That my mom liked the company. That she understood things Elise couldn't talk to me about. I remember joking once, "You're not going to turn her against me, are you?" Elise had smiled faintly and said, "She's already decided how she feels about you." At the time, I thought she meant it affectionately. I didn't realize it was a warning. After dinner, I watched her undress in our bedroom like nothing had changed. She asked if I wanted to watch something. I said I was tired. She kissed my forehead and said, "Happy anniversary, love." Then turned off the light and rolled onto her side. I didn't sleep. Instead, I stared at the ceiling and counted the seconds between her breaths. I wondered how long she'd been lying to me. I wondered if she thought I deserved it. And mostly, I wondered what my mother knew. The next morning, I sent my mother a text. "Can we talk?" "In person." She replied almost instantly. "Of course. Come by any time." When I got to her house, she was already waiting on the porch. Hair perfectly curled. Blouse pressed. That same quiet smile she always wore when she had something to say, but wanted you to ask first. We sat inside. She poured me tea. "You seem off," she said. I looked at her, the woman who raised me, the woman who taught me to always tell the truth, to never humiliate people, to protect what you love. And I asked her, because I had to, "Did Elise say anything to you about being unhappy with me?" She didn't flinch. She didn't lie. Instead, she set her cup down and said, "You know, I always admired her taste in scarves. Delicate, European. Not the kind of thing most women around here wear. What does that have to do with? She wasn't meant for you, Nathan." The room fell silent. My throat tightened. "Excuse me." I knew it before she did. My mother said, folding her hands calmly. She tried. I'll give her that. But eventually I told her the truth. I stared at her like she'd just admitted to poisoning my dog. You told her. I said she wasn't going to be happy with you. Not the way she wants to be. You're too careful, too ordinary. She needs someone with fire. You're sweet, reliable. She would have resented you forever. I felt like I was floating. My skin tingled, like I was hearing her through water. You encouraged her to cheat on me? My mother looked away, just for a second. No, I just didn't discourage her when she started asking questions. My hands clenched around the cup. You talked her into it. She met my eyes again. And what she said next made something in me die. I protected you. You just don't see it yet. I didn't speak for a full minute after she said it. My mother just sat there, calmly sipping her tea like she hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of my life. Her eyes were focused on the steam rising from the cup, not on me, like this conversation wasn't new to her. Like she'd played it out before, with herself, in the mirror, a dozen times. Protected me, I said finally. The words came out hollow. By what, convincing my wife she should sleep with someone else? She was already looking, she said simply. I only opened the door. Something inside me flared. I stood up too quickly, the chair legs scraping against the wood floor like a warning siren. You had no right. Her gaze didn't follow me. You don't understand what she's capable of, Nathan. What she would have done to you if I hadn't stepped in. I stared down at her. At the woman I once believed was incapable of malice. At the person who used to tuck me in when I had night terrors, who once stitched a tiny fox onto my school backpack when I told her it was my guardian. I whispered, you were supposed to protect us. She looked up at that. And for the first time, I saw something else flash behind her eyes, not guilt, not regret. Satisfaction. You'll see, she said softly. One day, you'll understand. I left without another word. Drove aimlessly. Parked outside a pharmacy. Sat in the car with the engine running until it stalled. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was something worse. Something deeper. Elise didn't just fall out of love with me. She didn't just find someone else. She had help. Guidance. Permission. From my own mother. I didn't sleep that night, either. Elise asked me what was wrong, half-heartedly, while brushing her teeth. I told her I had a migraine. She offered me a pill and a kiss on the cheek. Both felt mechanical. I watched her sleep again. But this time, it wasn't pain I felt. It was calculation. She was too good at lying. Too calm. And now that I'd heard my mother's side, I couldn't stop wondering how long this had been going on. How many times they'd spoken without me knowing. How much of my marriage had been managed. I waited until she left for her Saturday yoga class. Then I started looking. I didn't even know what I was looking for at first. Just some crack. Some hairline fracture that would let me see behind the mirror. I started in her closet. Not her phone. She'd gotten too good at keeping that locked. But the physical world leaves traces. Receipts. Notes. Paper trails. It didn't take long. Inside an old scarf box, when I bought her for her birthday last year, I remember I found them. Letters. Not from him. From her. My mother. Some folded delicately. Some opened and refolded so many times they were starting to tear at the seams. I pulled them out and sat on the floor of our bedroom, the letters spread out like tarot cards. The first one I opened was dated 7 months ago. Elise, thank you for talking with me the other day. I know it's difficult. You are not a bad person for wanting more. Don't let guilt trap you into a life that doesn't fit. I see the way you shrink when you're with him. It breaks my heart. You're too alive to live like that. Please know, I'm here for you, whatever you decide. Another, a month later. He won't hate you. Not forever. And in time, you'll see he's better off with someone who doesn't hold her breath every time she walks into a room with him. Another. I know you've met someone. I won't ask questions. But be careful. Don't rush. There's no shame in leaving before the rot sets in. I sat there, shaking. I don't know how long. An hour, maybe 2. This wasn't just passive. My mother didn't just watch it happen. She guided it. She groomed it. Every letter was like a piece of the scaffolding she built to slowly extract my wife from our marriage. And Elise had kept them, not hidden in some far corner, not burned or shredded or buried. Kept neatly, like they were meaningful to her. I put them back exactly as I'd found them. That night, Elise brought home Chinese food. My favorite. She lit a candle at the table and said, "We should do this more. Just us. No phones. No work talk." She didn't know I'd found the letters. She looked at me with those warm, practiced eyes and smiled like we were still in love. I asked her, casually, "Do you ever talk to my mom?" She hesitated. "Not long, but enough." "Sometimes," she said. "You know that." "Lately." She took a bite of her lo mein and said, "What's this about?" "I'm just curious." She leaned back, watching me now, calculating. "She's been really kind to me," she said slowly. "More than I expected. It's rare, you know, to have a mother-in-law who actually wants what's best for both of you." I nodded, then said something I still don't understand, even now. "I think you're right." She looked up, confused. "About what?" "That we shouldn't pretend anymore." Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. I stared at her frozen expression, her carefully blank eyes, her silence, and felt something uncoil in my chest. A smile. Not from amusement, but from clarity. She asked, "What do you mean by that?" I leaned back in my chair and said, "You'll see." Because I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I wanted her to sweat, to second-guess every move, to wonder what I knew and how I knew it. Because now it wasn't just her betrayal. It was theirs. And I was going to play this the same way they did. Carefully. Silently. Step by step. It was a strange kind of comfort, knowing she was lying to me. Like walking through a house you'd already seen burned down. There was still furniture. Still photographs on the walls. But you knew what it smelled like underneath. After dinner, Elise tried to kiss me again. I let her. It felt like letting someone write their name in a book you were already planning to burn. The next day, I didn't go to work. I drove to a place I hadn't been in over a decade, a gray office block near the edge of the industrial park, where my old friend Sam used to run his security installation business. Sam and I had drifted apart after college, but we still talked once or twice a year. The kind of friend who doesn't ask questions unless you ask him to. I needed cameras. Not because I thought Elise would do something reckless. She was too careful for that. But I needed to know how she moved when I wasn't around. Not her body, her mind. I wanted to see how often she checked her phone. If she flinched when she talked to me. If she lingered near the window after I left the house. "Are you sure about this?" Sam asked, arms crossed, leaning back in his chair as I explained what I wanted. "No," I said, "but I'm doing it anyway." He didn't press. Just nodded, then handed me a small bag with 2 thumb-sized cameras and instructions on how to sync them to a private stream. "You want audio?" "Not yet." He raised an eyebrow. "You planning to catch her in the act?" I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure what act I was trying to catch. She'd already left the marriage. That much was clear. Whether her body had followed didn't matter. She wasn't mine anymore. Not really. Not in the way that counts. But still, I needed proof. Not for revenge. For reality. I installed the cameras when she went to yoga again. One in the hallway, angled toward the front door. The other above the bookshelf in the study, facing her desk. The desk I'd once built for her, by hand. The first week, there was nothing. Just quiet movements. Phone calls I couldn't hear. Her humming while sorting laundry. The way she'd pause sometimes by the window, holding a mug of tea with both hands, a gesture she only did when she was nervous. The second week, something shifted. She made a call. It was late, almost midnight, and she was sitting cross-legged on the couch in her robe, whispering into the phone with her head turned toward the window. I couldn't hear her, but I could see her expression. Smiling. Gentle. Eyes half-lidded the way they used to look when she spoke to me in the beginning. That night, I replayed the footage over and over, paused on the moment where she tilted her head back, laughed quietly, then bit her lip like she was suppressing something bigger. I didn't sleep at all. The next day, I got a message. An unknown number. Just a name. Clara. Followed by, "We should talk. I know what she did, and I know why your mother helped her." I stared at the screen. Clara. The name didn't register at first, but then, like a match catching in the dark, it came back. She was an old friend of mine, or more accurately, a friend of my ex-girlfriend, before Elise. We'd met once or twice. Quiet girl. Strange laugh. I remembered her only because she'd once told me, "Your mother gives me the creeps." Back then, I thought she was being dramatic. I texted back, "Why now?" Her reply was immediate. "Because I think you're in danger. Not the way you think. Emotionally." Then another message, almost as an afterthought. "She did this before. To another woman. Not Elise." I met Clara at a diner off the highway, one of those places that looked like it hadn't changed since 1983. She was older now, obviously, but her eyes were still the same, wide, observant, slightly sad. She didn't waste time. "It was your ex," she said, stirring a chipped mug of coffee. "The one before Elise." "Lydia." I stiffened. That name hadn't crossed my mind in years. Clara kept going. "She never told you why she really left, did she?" I shook my head slowly. "She said she wasn't ready for something long-term. That was the story." Clara gave a bitter little laugh. "She didn't tell you your mother called her, invited her to lunch, told her you'd never be the kind of man who could give her what she needed." The words were almost identical to what my mother told Elise. "She said you were too small for the life Lydia wanted, that you'd hold her back." I swallowed, my chest tightening. Why would Lydia believe her? Because she didn't know better. And your mother is persuasive. She knows exactly what to say to women like her. Like Elise. Like me. I looked up. "She did it to you too?" "Not the same way. But yeah, I dated someone close to your family. And your mom made sure I didn't stay." Clara leaned in then, eyes intense. "You don't know who she is." "Not really. You think she's cold, strategic. But it's more than that. She's territorial. She doesn't want you hurt. But she also doesn't want anyone else to have power over you. Especially not a woman." My stomach turned. All the late-night calls Elise had taken in the kitchen, whispering in the dark. The way my mother always smiled at her just a little too knowingly. I asked, quietly, "Why are you telling me this now?" Clara looked out the window, then back at me. "Because I've seen it happen twice, and I can't watch it a third time." Then she handed me something. A small, manila envelope. Inside, copies of emails. Screenshots. A record of communications between my mother and Elise. Dates going back 2 years. Back before Elise ever changed. Before she pulled away. Before she stopped calling me darling. It didn't start as betrayal. Not at first. It started with concern. He's always working. He doesn't see me. Sometimes I wonder if he's even present when we're together. My mother's replies were always gentle. Supportive. But with a surgical edge. "Maybe you need to think about what you really want. Not just what he needs. You're allowed to have joy. You're not selfish for needing more." It was subtle. But it was poison. Slow. Precise. And I hadn't seen it until it was far too late. Elise started waking up earlier. At first, I thought it was coincidence. But after the third day in a row, slipping out of bed before sunrise, barely touching her coffee, checking the window twice before leaving, I knew better. She could feel it. Not the cameras. Not the letters. Just something. The shift in the air. The way I stopped asking questions. The way I smiled too easily when she said she'd be home late. A dog knows when the leash is coming, even if you haven't reached for it yet. That Friday, she didn't go to yoga. She said she was meeting a friend from her old job. I nodded, kissed her on the cheek. She smiled a little too long before she left, like she needed to check if I bought it. I did, because I already had the footage queued up. At 6:42 p.m., she left the house wearing that blue wrap dress, the one she used to save for our anniversaries. At 6:58, I watched her get into someone else's car. Not an Uber. No app open on her phone. Just a slow, deliberate walk to a silver sedan parked half a block away. She didn't look back. Not once. The man driving was about my age. Dark hair. Athletic build. The kind of face you don't remember 5 minutes after seeing it. Not conventionally attractive. Just safe-looking. The kind of man a woman introduces to her friends and nobody raises a brow. He leaned across the car to kiss her before she even closed the door. I didn't flinch. Didn't throw anything. Didn't scream. I just watched. When she came home 4 hours later, she brought me a slice of pie in a to-go container. Said she thought of me. "Cherry," she said, smiling. "Your favorite." I told her I loved her. And I meant it, in the way a hunter loves the sound of branches snapping behind him. That weekend, I drove to a bookstore 2 towns over. Bought a cheap notebook, a map, and 3 pens, black, red, and blue. I started logging everything. Every movement. Every call. Every inconsistency. I wasn't collecting evidence for the police. I wasn't planning to confront her in some theatrical blow-up. This wasn't about justice anymore. This was about understanding the mechanism of betrayal. How it builds. How it masks itself. How it survives. Every time she smiled at me, I logged it. Every time she lingered before speaking. Every missed call. Every sigh. Every silence. There was a language to it. And I was learning it. Clara kept feeding me more. Emails, texts Elise had deleted. Some she must have thought were long gone. But fragments remained in old backups or synced accounts. Clara, God bless her strange obsession, had pulled it all from the corners of the cloud. One thread stood out. "Elise, he's been quiet lately. I think he knows. Unknown number. Then you need to speed things up. He can't keep you in limbo. Elise, I'm not scared of him. But I don't want it to be ugly. Unknown. Then control the ending. Before he does. Control the ending." It echoed for days. Who was this man? M, from the emails. The one in the silver car. The one my wife let touch the skin I used to kiss goodnight. I needed to know him. Not just his name. I needed to know how he walked, what he believed in, how he saw the world. Because only then could I understand why Elise let herself fall for him. And why my mother let it happen. I started tailing her. Once a week. Always from far enough back that she wouldn't notice. She was cautious, but not skilled. She thought hiding texts and deleting call logs was enough. She didn't know how paranoia leaks into the way you check mirrors, the way your footsteps change when you hear a second pair behind you. That Wednesday, I followed her to a park near the East End. She met him near the back tennis courts. No one else around. They didn't touch. They talked for almost 30 minutes. Then he handed her something, a folded piece of paper. She read it, nodded, and they parted without a kiss. That meant something had changed. The next day, I found out his name. Matthew Klein. Works in design. Freelance. Does interior remodels, mostly upscale. I found his website. A clean portfolio. Beige tones. Tasteful accents. A short bio with one line that nearly made me laugh. I believe a space should tell the truth about who lives in it. I imagined Elise reading that, thinking it was profound, thinking it applied to her, that she was some trapped soul hiding behind the wrong walls, that maybe, with Matthew, she'd finally feel seen. But what Elise didn't know was that I'd already reached out to him, as a client, under a different name, and he'd agreed to meet. The cafe we picked was neutral ground, downtown, mid-morning, half empty. He walked in carrying a portfolio under his arm, dress shirt open at the collar, sleeves rolled. He looked exactly like I expected him to, blandly confident. The kind of man who sells sensitivity because it plays well in a world that doesn't look closely. He didn't recognize me. I gave a fake name, shook his hand, told him I was looking to redesign his space after a major life transition. "Ah," he said, smiling. "Fresh start kind of thing?" I nodded. "Something like that." He flipped open the binder, started showing me examples. Rooms he'd done, lighting changes, floor plans. His voice was smooth, measured, but every now and then, something flickered behind his words. A kind of practiced detachment. He wasn't in love with Elise. Not really. He was invested, but already half thinking about how he'd exit cleanly when it got messy, which meant he was more like my mother than he realized. I asked him, as he showed me a kitchen remodel, "Do you ever get involved with clients?" "Personally." He blinked, just for a second, then smiled. "No. That business." I returned the smile. "Shame. Some people probably fall for you." He laughed politely. "I try to keep boundaries." I nodded slowly. "I bet you're good at it." He didn't respond, just turned the page. And I let the silence hang, because I wanted him to feel it. That chill under the skin when someone's looking just a little too closely. When the meeting ended, I didn't shake his hand. I just said, "Thanks. You've given me a lot to think about." He nodded, walked away. He still didn't know, but soon he would. Because this wasn't about Elise anymore. Not entirely. This was about the people who believed they could steer my life without my consent. Elise, Matthew, and my mother. They didn't understand what they'd built together. But I did. They'd built a house out of lies. And I just found the match. Elise came home late again. This time, she didn't bring pie. No excuses. No little gifts. Just silence. The rustle of her coat sliding off her shoulders, and the click of her phone being set on the kitchen counter. She looked tired, or maybe just cornered. I was waiting at the dining table, the lights low. 2 glasses. 1 bottle of wine already open. She paused when she saw it. "I thought we could talk," I said calmly. "Like we used to." Her mouth tightened, just slightly. "About what?" "Us." She stared at the wine like it was bait. She was right. It was. Still, she sat. She poured half a glass. Took a sip. I didn't touch mine. "I've been thinking a lot," I said, "about what it means to love someone. How much of it is memory? How much is momentum? How much is habit?" She didn't answer. I leaned back. "Do you remember our first apartment?" She smiled faintly. "The one with the mice? And the peeling linoleum? And the neighbors who yelled at each other every night?" I nodded. "We loved each other then." She was quiet for a moment. "We were kids. We didn't know what we were doing. And now we do." That caught her, just for a second. Then she said, "Nathan, where is this going?" I watched her, the way her fingers curled slightly around the stem of the glass. Defensive posture. She'd read somewhere it made people feel protected. I said, "I know about him." Her face didn't change, but the rest of her froze. "Matthew," I said. "The car. The texts. The meetings at the park. The folded notes. The late nights that were never yoga. The silence that followed was a kind of violence." She set her glass down slowly. "How long?" "Long enough." She didn't ask how I knew. That was telling. She just leaned back, her arms crossed now. The defensive posture turned full fortress. "So what now?" she asked. "You want me to apologize? Tell you it didn't mean anything?" I smiled. "I don't want anything from you." That made her blink. "You should," she said. "You should be screaming, throwing things, calling him." I already met him. Her expression broke then, full fracture. "What?" I booked a meeting. Interior design consultation. Told him I wanted to renovate a space after a life transition. He was very professional. "You, Jesus, Nathan." She stood abruptly, pacing now. "You've been watching me. Spying. You know how insane that is." "I know what's insane," I said, standing too. "It's insane that I had to find out the person I married was cheating on me after being groomed to do it by my own mother." That stopped her cold. "She told you?" Elise said quietly. I nodded. She sat back down, slower this time. Did she tell you why? I waited. Let the moment stretch. Then, why don't you? Elise looked away, then back at me. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I saw something real in her. Not love, not guilt, just naked clarity. She didn't think I was good for you. That's not her choice. She made it anyway. And I let her. Because, she stopped, her voice hitching just slightly. Because she said things I couldn't stop thinking about. That you'd never really fight for anything. That you just endure. That one day I'd wake up and wonder what I gave my life to. I swallowed hard. And the worst part, Elise said, she didn't sound cruel. She sounded right. We sat in silence for a while. She looked at me, eyes no longer angry, just tired. I didn't plan it like this. I swear to God. But once the door was open, you walked through it. She nodded, and never looked back. A beat. Then no. I did. I do. I stepped closer. You still talk to her? I asked. She hesitated. Yes, she said finally. Not as much. But yeah. What does she say now? That I'm doing the right thing. That love doesn't have to mean staying. I laughed under my breath. She never believed in staying. Not really. She believes in you. I looked at her then, really looked at her. The woman I built a home with. The woman I made coffee for every Sunday morning. The woman who once cried in my arms after watching a stray dog get hit by a car. And I said, no, she believes in control. Elise opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. I'm not angry anymore, I said. That's not what this is. Then what is it? I picked up the second glass, untouched, and emptied it into the sink. Then I took out a small box from the cabinet, set it gently on the table. Inside, the letters. Her eyes widened, not in surprise, but recognition. You read them. I nodded, and I made copies. She didn't ask why. She already knew. Tomorrow, I said, you're going to go to my mother. You're going to tell her it's over. That you're ending it with Matthew. That you and I are going to try again. She'll be happy. She'll be relieved. She'll think she won. And then what? Then you'll stop speaking to her. And to him. And you'll leave this house. Her jaw tightened. So you want me to lie to her? No, I said softly. I want her to believe she still controls the ending. Elise stared at me for a long time. And then, slowly, nodded. Not because she agreed, but because she understood. That night, we didn't sleep in the same bed. We didn't speak. But in the morning, she put on her coat, took the box with the letters, and drove to my mother's house. She stayed for 43 minutes. When she came back, she didn't unpack. She didn't look at me. She walked into the bedroom, grabbed 2 suitcases, and started folding clothes. Where will you go? I asked. She shrugged. A friend's. You'll be okay? She looked at me for the last time. No performance. No spin. Not for a while, she said. But eventually. She paused in the doorway, one hand on her suitcase. I did love you, she said. That part was real, even when I didn't know how to show it anymore. I nodded, then turned away, because she didn't need to see how much I wanted to believe her. The house was quiet after Elise left. It didn't feel like freedom, or closure, just silence. The kind that hums behind your ears when the power goes out. You think it's peace, but it's really just absence wearing a mask. I didn't move her things, didn't erase her from the space. Her mug still sat on the kitchen rack, lip stained faint around the rim. Her book, half finished, lay on the armrest of the couch, a pressed flower used as a placeholder. Sometimes I caught myself staring at it, wondering what page she last read, what sentence made her stop, whether she knew then what she was about to do to me, or if she'd already done it. I didn't call her, didn't reach out to Matthew. I let the lie stand. Let my mother believe Elise had come crawling back, that her strategy had worked. I gave her that, for a little while. Then, 3 weeks later, I invited her to dinner. She wore pearl earrings and brought a bottle of wine. She smiled when I answered the door. That same small smile she gave people she knew she'd already beaten. "It's good to see you, Nathan," she said. "You too." We sat across from each other at the table. Candlelight. Roasted chicken. Like old times. She picked at her food more than she ate it. Watching me. Waiting. I asked about her garden. She told me the hydrangeas had taken better than expected this year. We made small talk for almost an hour. She didn't ask about Elise. She didn't have to. She assumed she knew everything already. When dessert was done, I poured us each a glass of port. I handed her an envelope. "What's this?" she asked, amused. I didn't answer. She opened it. Inside, copies of the letters. Printed emails. Photographs of her and Elise meeting outside the cafe. Surveillance stills. A neatly typed note on top. "This is who you are. This is what you do. This time, it's on record." My mother's smile didn't break immediately. It held for a few seconds, then dissolved, slowly, like sugar in bitter tea. She didn't speak for a long time. When she finally did, her voice was calm, measured, but I could hear the tremble underneath it. "You planned this." I nodded. "Since the night you said you protected me." Her hands folded neatly on the table, the papers untouched in front of her. "You don't understand, Nathan. Everything I did was for me," I said. "I know. That's the story. It's not a story. It's the truth." "No. The truth is this. You couldn't stand the idea of anyone else being the center of my life. You dressed it up in care, but it was always about control. You needed her to fail. You wanted her to leave. And when she didn't, when she hesitated, you made sure she did." She looked away, eyes flicking toward the window, toward the garden, the one she always called her sanctuary. I wondered how many other lives she'd weeded from it over the years. "You think I'm some kind of monster," she said. "No," I said. "I think you're exactly who you've always been. I just finally see it." She was quiet again. Then, "So what now? You'll leave Elise alone. You'll never contact her again. You'll tell your friends whatever story you want. I don't care. But if you reach out to her, if you so much as whisper her name, those copies go public. To her employer. To mine. To anyone who's ever sat through your charity brunches thinking you're a pillar of grace." My mother didn't nod, didn't protest. She just said, "You've changed." "No," I said. "You stopped hiding." She stood slowly, gathering her coat. She paused at the door, one hand on the knob. Then, without turning around, "She would have destroyed you, Nathan. Maybe not this year. Maybe not the next. But one day, I just got there first." I didn't reply. She left without another word. It's been a year. Elise and I haven't spoken since she left. I heard she moved to Portland. Went back to design work. A friend said she's dating someone new. Not Matthew. He disappeared from her life shortly after the split. Maybe she ended it. Maybe he realized the fallout wasn't worth the thrill. My mother and I haven't seen each other since that dinner. She sent a card on my birthday. No note inside. Just a quote printed in script. "Love is what remains when all the lies have been burned away." I didn't reply. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Elise and I had met later. Or earlier. Or not at all. Sometimes I wonder what might have happened if my mother had never picked up a pen. But mostly, I just keep living. The house is quieter now. I filled the bookshelf with new things. I repainted the bedroom, different color. No more soft neutrals. Now it's a deep blue. The kind that reminds you night exists. And that it can be beautiful without needing anyone in it. There are moments when the grief still hits. Not for Elise, but for the man I used to be. The one who believed his mother could never lie to him. The one who thought love, once real, couldn't be rewritten. But that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't scream. It seeps. And when you finally taste it, you realize it's been in your mouth for months. Maybe years. And you were just too afraid to name the flavor. Now I know what it tastes like. And I know how to spit it out. Thanks for watching. If this story pulled you in, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next confession. Until next time, take care and watch who you trust.